This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We've got a lot of things to talk about with our colleague Mike Gallagher. The leaked characterization of the forthcoming DOJ IG report on Comey and Lynch, what Paul Ryan had to say about Spygate. So many things. The details of Obama administration lying about the Iran deal. Important geopolitical things that negatively or positively impact the future of Western civilization, Amy.
Yes.
But that's not what I want to talk about, Mike Gallagher.
What do you want to talk to him about? The pardoning of Alice Johnson?
At the Tony Awards, obviously.
Oh, the Tony Awards.
We're talking Mr. Broadway, Mike Gallagher.
Oh, yes.
Joins us now, Mike Gallagher, host of the Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays 9 to 11 on these airwaves. Mike, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
And Dan, ever the very prescient host that you are. I'm right in the middle of a run of one of the greatest American musicals ever made, Guys and Dolls.
Sure.
I'm playing Nicely Johnson. I open tomorrow night.
Seriously?
And theater geek that I am, you know, some people have baseball cards or they collect stamps.
Right.
I just like theater a lot, and I live in Manhattan, and so I go to theater all the time, and it's just a big deal for me. So the crisis now is how to do a performance on Sunday and make it to the Tony Awards to watch the Tony Awards Sunday night. So while normal people are with their families and breaking bread and watching, you know, ball games and stuff, I'm going to be geeking out in front of the hotel, you know, TV set watching the Tony Awards. That's how shallow and petty and pathetic my life is.
Everyone has
those are downtown problems.
Everybody has a hobby.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite musical?
Well, wait,
performance?
well, just before Guys and Dolls, I mean, I see you as a big Julie.
Well, I know I'm Nicely. I'm Nicely Johnson, which is a great role because there's no costume changes. Nicely gets to sing the big 11 o'clock number, "Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat," without having the pressure of the show, like as one of the main leads. But no, and I did this role like 25 years ago, so now I guess I'm more age appropriate. I don't need a fat suit like I did when I was a kid.
It's
nice because Nicely's always.
It's just like Val Kilmer coming back to do Top Gun.
Thank you. Or for theater freaks, Yul Brynner coming back to play the King in King and I. You know, now I'm kind of really middle-aged and fat.
Can you give us a few bars, or is that a SAG-AFTRA violation?
Well, it's an actors equity rule that I can't sing before noon. Plus, boy. I'm kind of tired. But I mean, no, this is Tech Week, so this is when it all. But it really, all kidding aside, it's a pretty cool opportunity. The theater is in Dallas. They have about a 35-piece orchestra. Huge sets, huge production, big cast, professional theater, lots of professional actors from New York who are actually in Dallas doing this show, and I'm pretty excited to open up tomorrow night, guys, but not quite as excited as the news that I get to visit with my top morning show, Dan and Amy, this morning.
You're a multifaceted performer, like
honestly,
Amy.
I thought you guys were joking around.
No.
This is the real deal. So since you've played this role before, you don't really have to study your lines, or are they indelibly etched in your brain?
No, you really do. I mean, it's not quite like falling off a bike. I mean, it's been 25 years since I played this role. So, but it's not as hard as other roles I played. A couple of years ago, I played Max Bialystock in a production of The Producers.
Yeah.
That's the hardest role I've ever played. Tough songs, and the Nathan Lane role that just goes on, and the Zero Mostel created it in the movie. But it's a terrific musical. But it's kind of my passion, and I haven't acted in a few years, and they called me and said, hey, you want to come to Dallas for about a month and a half and do Nicely and Guys and Dolls? And so tomorrow night's opening night, and I'm pumped. I'm ready to go.
Well, you're still going to do your radio show, right? You're going.
Oh yeah, radio show every morning, and then theater at night.
Well,
Dan,
I'm sorry, and I'd love to see you in the leg warmers and the tights too. By the way,
no, you don't. You don't want to see that. But I am glad you started to say the three words that you must say to an actor.
Break a leg.
Before. Yeah, do not say the other thing. GL is not.
No.
That's bad luck to say the first thing.
I have no musical ability or acting ability, talent, really, generally speaking. But I am a patron of the theater, so I know this.
So, just say
we need to get Mike in town. Maybe do maybe bring Chicago back here. You could play Billy Flynn.
Ooh, Billy Flynn's a great role. You know what I've done around the country once in a while? My dear friend, family friend, Sally Struthers and I have performed the play Love Letters by A.R. Gurney. It's a very touching, poignant play. It's a two-person play, and we've done that as a benefit for my foundation, Gallagher's Army, the Fallen Officer Fund, which helps the families of police officers killed in the line of duty. We've done that in a number of cities around the country. So maybe one of these days, Sally and I will have to come to town and do Love Letters. It'd be a lot of fun. Have you guys be our special VIP guests.
Does she ever slip and call you meathead?
No, she does, and I don't think it's slipping. I think she means it. She's quite a character. She's just as good. She's just as crazy as you think she is.
All right.
Well, I've learned so much about you this morning in the last 7 minutes.
The layers to Mike Gallagher. The layers. All right. Well, we got to talk a little political news too, and so. Paul Ryan, the D.C. press corps yesterday was in full froth over the notion that Paul Ryan undermined President Trump's assertions about Spygate. And I didn't really interpret it that way. I interpreted it as here's what I believe to be true at this point, but we still have questions to be answered. We still have a briefing next week. I thought it was rather measured. What was your take?
Dan, I have the same reaction you do. There's an over-the-top disdain that a lot of people seem to have for Paul Ryan, and it's almost like there's this sort of need to make him the boogeyman. And frankly, I don't know that he is. I mean, I wish he was had been a little bit more assertive in his defense of the president and the agenda, but I don't see him as this guy who's this devious, malcontent who's trying to do harm. I know last night on Lou Dobbs' show, and Lou's a friend of mine, but Lou was like, get him the heck out of there. He needs to go. He's a joke. He's terrible, and he's a disaster and ought to quit right this minute. And there are plenty of listeners who feel that way. I think the same way. I feel the same way you do. He's a very measured guy, maybe not as charismatic or as in your face as red meat Republicans would like. But I had the same takeaway you did. What's fascinating to me is that you mentioned this IG report, and of course it was supposed to be out in May. Guys, do you remember how to connect? Remember what Trump said when Comey was first fired, and everybody was scratching their heads saying, "Wait a minute, he's fired because of the way he handled the Hillary email investigation," and everybody kind of shrugged their shoulders, and we moved on from that, and that was the Trump administration's position. Well, here we go with multiple sources reporting that this IG report from Horowitz is expected to blast Comey as having been insubordinate, and blasting Loretta Lynch, and blasting a number of these top Justice Department officials as having not done their job. Well, rewind. Remember, that's what Trump said a long time ago, and we forget that. How many times have we seen things come to fruition that have been tweeted about by this unpredictable president, this bull in a china shop, as I call him. He is often more right than wrong, but we forget it because we have such a fire hose of information and news coming at us that the cycle changes every 24 hours, veering from Samantha Bee into something else, and we forget, he was right all along. So I think it's worth noting, next week, a huge week with the North Korea summit. This is something that was unthinkable during the Obama administration. And, we'll sit back and watch the media and not give him credit where credit is due. There are extraordinary accomplishments being achieved in this first year and a half or so, and I believe more and more Americans are standing up and paying notice.
Yeah, I do think President Trump was spot on with Comey's, insubordination. It's highly concerning and pretty rare, but what about Spygate? What about the Russians or the FBI alleged spy or source that was implemented into Trump's campaign? Because Paul Ryan and Trey Gowdy seem to be on the same page that the FBI did the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is when you talk about layers of people. There are layers of intrigue to all of this. When Ryan says that Gowdy was accurate, when he said the FBI had acted appropriately, I happen to have a lot of confidence in Trey Gowdy. Again, he's been identified and sort of tarred and feathered as more recently as a swamp creature by red meat Republicans, and I get it. I get the frustration. I get the impatience. but frankly, and they are at odds with the president, who has claimed that there was a spy embedded in the campaign. But listen, this is all being unwound. It's taking longer than we hoped. It's a distraction. It's unnecessary. There are solid, important things that people care about. I don't believe. I mean, we're into it because we're in the weeds with all this stuff, guys. But I don't believe that Americans who are trying to put food on their table and pay the mortgage give a rat's rear end about Spygate or about the IG report or about Comey. You know, they want to know what the economy is going to do and if they're going to be able to hold on to their job or maybe get a raise. They want to know if there's going to be border security. They want to know if, you know, Kim Jong-un is going to send off missiles. Those are things that matter, and those are things that the president is attempting to address. I just hope all these distractions don't pull him into a different direction from where he ought to be.
What's your assessment of his use of his pardon power over the last couple of weeks, including yesterday, commuting the sentence of one Alice Johnson?
This seems to be a great example of a non-politician who suddenly is the leader of the free world. You know, I mean, he doesn't do anything the way it's, and I put this in quotes, supposed to be done. This story of this most recent commutation, this lady, and the things she said about President Trump, I mean, this just has to fly in the face of the haters when they ask her, what do you think of this president? I love this man. No one listened to us. I mean, you know, for such a so-called bigoted, racist president, here's a guy who posthumously, pardoned the Great White Hope, the black boxer. Family asked the Obama administration, please, can you please clear our loved one's record? And the Obama administration's position was pretty much, we don't pardon dead people. Well, you know, Trump knew how important this was to his family, and so you see these people of color and minorities and people who have been ignored in the past being addressed and assisted by this president. Again, wow, what a wacky thing for a bigoted, racist, hate monger like Donald Trump to do. It's pretty extraordinary. We're living in extraordinary times, Dan and Amy, and I just always wonder if we're able to appreciate the history that we're experiencing day by day.
And maybe more African Americans will look at the Republican Party now and take a second look at President Trump.
It's a great point. I mean, look at unemployment right now in the black community is the lowest it's been since they've been keeping the record books on it. Now, I'm sorry that's not a coincidence that these economic policies have led to that. And so I think a lot of African Americans are saying, you know what, maybe this guy isn't so bad. Maybe this guy's great for America, and we're gonna give the Republican Party, which came up with these tax cuts and this great tax law, another look.
He is Mike Gallagher. You mainly know him from Broadway productions like Guys and Dolls. He also has a radio show, The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays 9 to 11 on these airwaves right after us. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Great visiting with you. Thanks for having me, guys. Keep fighting the good fight. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.